I'll be moving soon and leaving the illustrious, picturesque Oakland behind. Don't worry, I haven't made it. In fact, if there was a word for a lateral move with a whiff of going backwards, it would accurately describe my current experience. I've had to scale down and or replace many of my possessions to fit into what will surely be another tiny apartment. Along with reducing the size of my home furnishings, I've also had to sell off a variety of what most would call crap in order to help finance the impending move. Instead of having a yard sale in the ghetto and subject myself to a parade of people pawing at my personal belongings, only to yield $14 for an entire weekend, I opted for Plan B, Craigslist. For the uninformed, Craigslist is not just a place on the internet where serial killers stalk people via their personal ads. It is, in fact, allegedly, an online community advertising magazine to help you find a myriad of things, such as jobs, cars, or the nearest swinger gangbang in your area. In recent years, we have all but removed the stigma that was once associated with computers. These days, everyone has a smartphone, and today's youth are born with an inherent sense of where to find the nearest Wi-Fi hotspot. However, there are a few pockets of unbridled human insanity that still exist within the confines of the computer world, and one such place is Craigslist. Rather than employing a vague, exaggerated, comedic approach to characterize universally identifiable characters, I would instead like to draw on personal experience and outline a few of the personalities that I've encountered in the schizophrenic salad of Craigslist transactions. To prove that I am not above scrutiny, I'll place myself at the top of the list. Me, the profusely sweaty salesman. I often go the extra mile to ensure that what I am selling is fully operational and is valued accordingly. However, from the moment the doorbell rings, I am forced to interact with a person in a short, awkward situation. I immediately become nervous. Before I crack the door open and welcome a potential buyer inside, my hands begin beading with sweat. As a clammy-handed person, you are faced with three choices when someone tries to shake your hand. 1. Present a pathetic Howie Mandel excuse about the unsanitary nature of slapping skin and instead offer to fist bump them. 2. Quickly grasp their hand and brace for their slight but disgusted ick face when they grab your sweaty digits. 3. Flatly drag your hand along your pant leg in one sly motion as you bring it forward to shake, an unspoken declaration of living with hyperhidrosis. From this point on, I become the character Gil Gunderson from The Simpsons, an inept salesman with little to no confidence who invariably blows every deal the moment before it comes to fruition. On my good days, I can talk somebody out of an item they originally thought they couldn't live without. Next, the guy with 1,000 obscure questions. The guy with 1,000 obscure questions never purchases anything of monetary value that would justify 1,000 questions. All of his inquiries are about items that cost $50 or less. Guy with 1,000 questions wants to know the provenance of your lawnmower from the time it was assembled at the factory until the day you got it. He'll ask you if you've always used standard lawnmower oil or if there was a period in the spring of 2008 when you switched it to synthetic. He'll ask you for all available serial numbers. He'll ask you to recite the English and Spanish instructions from the owner's manual. He'll ask you the tire width and the average MPG, miles per gallon. Regardless of how many specifications you provide the guy with, 1,000 obscure questions will never read the ad in full, and instead will ask a number of questions that have already been answered in the initial write-up. After you have satisfied all of his questions, the guy with 1,000 obscure questions will decide that he's not interested in the item and promptly hangs up on you. Next, guy who has a gross misunderstanding of what the words "like new" mean. I was looking for a mattress a little while ago, and I saw an ad for one on Craigslist that claimed it was barely used, like new. It wasn't a great deal, but the item was reasonably priced, and I was in desperate need of a mattress. So I called the guy up and asked him 1,000 obscure questions. My only requirement was that the mattress be firm enough that it didn't taco when I laid down on it. The guy assured me that the mattress had been used for less than 6 months, after which it was stored in an airtight bag. I was 2 towns away, but I told him I'd be right over. On the way there, I ran into Walmart to get some rope to tie the mattress to the roof of my comically small car. As I entered the house, the smell of bleach was overwhelming. I looked around the corner and found the source of the smell, the mattress. I was presented with a scene that looked like a poorly covered up crime. The mattress sat on the ground with 2 giant brown stains on it, where I assume an elderly grandmother voided her bowels, or the body of the guy's unfaithful wife was hastily dismembered on. In addition, when I sat upon the still wet bleach-reeking mattress, out of politeness, I immediately sunk into a crater in the middle of it, and I eventually had to roll off the mattress like a feeble puppy learning to walk. Next, gingivitis guy. I apologize. This is an insensitive way to describe this guy, but the image of his eroded gums echoes in my mind every time that I think of him. As I recall, the guy was coming to buy an old stereo CD player for his dad, to the tune of $20. On the phone, he sounded like a Caucasian surfer stoner, but in reality, he was a youngish dude of Asian descent in his 20s or early 30s who sadly had the gums of a corpse. He brought 5 of his own CDs with him because he wanted to ensure that the CD player played all the way up to track 26. For the next 15 minutes, we tested out self-help CDs, the first of which dealt with sobriety. The next one was about self-actualization and achieving your potential, and the third was about how to attain wealth and power. The final bizarre incident was when he popped in the last CD, his personal mix. He quizzed me on a track-by-track basis, while he grooved to Cutting Crew's I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight, spliced in between Lady Gaga's greatest hits. Ultimately, he bought the stereo. So win-win. Last but not least, the gnome lady. My wife was in the market for garden gnomes. All the good ones were too expensive, and all the inexpensive ones looked like butt. We suspected that anyone selling gnomes on Craigslist was probably a little crazy, and we were right. When she went to the lady's door, she opened it a crack and didn't seem to have any recollection of the phone conversation prior to my wife's arrival. She then told my wife to wait on the porch with the explanation, "I have cats." A few minutes later, amid a shuffling, slamming, and murmuring of ambient noises, the lady returned. She began to tell my wife the gnome's entire life story, and the only reason she was parting with them was because her condo complex did not allow exterior decoration. Unbeknownst to my wife, the gnomes had names and personalities too. At this point, it was becoming apparent that perhaps the gnomes and this lady had a more profound relationship than one might expect from a painted cast ceramic statue. My wife offered the lady $20 for the 2 of them, a fair price for the used garden ornaments. A little insulted, the lady fired back that she would have to stick firm to her original asking price of $23, no more, no less. Reluctantly, my wife peeled off the extra singles and handed them over to the lady, who appeared to have a tear forming in her right eye as she tentatively unclenched her death grip on the gnome boxes. There are 30 or 4 more people that I could write about, but they're mostly variations on a common theme. Honorable mentions go to the perpetual flake and the old lady who just wants someone to talk to. If you ever encountered an interesting Craigslist character, feel free to tell me about them in the comments below.